So for the sake of this video, we're going to we're going to do some things to OBS, and I am going to show you something, and you're not going to like it. No one is going to like it. No one's going to want to hear it. No one's going to want anything to do with it. But it is what it is, right? And yes, that is a Grok generated image. My little black hole, red black hole there. So yeah, I pulled up a figure, and we'll adjust a little bit so I can read, and maybe tone down the lighting a little bit so it's not as bad on my face. Okay. So here's the thing. On one of the figures I heard, let's go high, right? Let's say one of the figures I heard said that this fire displaced 7,000 or 10,000 people, right? Let's go above what they said. I'm pretty sure they said 7, but I could be mistaken, right? Okay. Heck, let's go even higher than that. Let's multiply that 10,000 by 10. 100,000 people, right? Okay. There's 12.8 million people in the LA area, total population, give or take. Can I tell you a little secret about why this mayor is going to end up keeping her job? Gavin Newsom will be the governor of California for the foreseeable future until he decides to retire. And why all these blue policies are going to keep going. I'll tell you why. It's called NIMBYism, but we're going to do this as a prophet would. We're going to tell you the facts behind that prophecy that I just made. Okay? And I'm going to actually pull up the information. Okay? We're going to pull up the previous... which again, learn how to spell stupid, right? Mayoral. Again, having trouble spelling. You know what? Okay. In 2022, she beat Rick Caruso by 54.8%. All right. Actually, you could probably get this number at more in depth. Okay, here we go. So even if you went with 10,000 people, it wouldn't swing that at all. If you went with 100,000 people, it would, right? But to be blunt, the margin here is really, actually, according to this margin, close to 100,000 on the runoff. So here's the thing. I'll make a prediction based off of what I know and ignore that site that you just saw. Um, Not to get political, just going by the numbers. I had to really think about what I'm saying here for a minute. Um, Not a thing is going to change in California moving forward. Okay? You're still going to have every political body in California jumping on the bandwagon, going all anti Trump, not caring about their own responsibilities in their own state. Um, and you'd have this behavior in many other states as well. And there are other contributing factors to this. Okay? This is just speaking at the mayoral level, but it's an example of a bigger problem, right? The problem is nobody does their research. No one, everyone looks and says, "Oh, he looks good enough to me," and then they're willing to die on that hill. They don't look into policy. They don't do any of the necessary homework. This is why nowadays we call them the NIMBYist liberals. Not in my backyard, and you're liberal, right? Um, the harsh reality of the situation is that none of it's going to change. Okay? Not one bit of it. And I'll tell you why. You can affect change as an individual. I can affect change as an individual. I can get on here and tout off my voice all I want. I could grab a hammer and go over to California and fight with the town government for the next 5 years for Los Angeles and get the houses. Try to get the house. Try to get busy with my friends and family that decide to come along and rebuild. Sure. Here's why I'm not going to, and I will tell you why. And this is going to sound routinely political, but it's not. I could go do this stuff. And, a lot of people on Twitter have gotten mad about saying, "Oh, well, you voted for it, live with it, pig," right? But here's the thing, even if you didn't vote for it and you voted against it and you platformed against it, you could have done more. And you're at the point now where every single person in your state needs to be standing up and saying something about this. Because this was a severe mishandling of your everything, your livelihoods, your resources, your homes, your safety, your well being, right? And yet, most of your political officials, most of your public officials, are sitting there trying to find someone else to blame. They're playing the blame shell game while your houses are in ash. Okay? And you're literally just going to let them do it. You're going to let them play the shell game of who to blame when in fact they all need to go. Okay? So, no, I won't be setting one foot in California. I won't be sending a red cent. I won't be donating. I feel bad for you, and I'm sorry that these things happen, but And this sucks because, by the way, there are people in California that I actually would probably bend over backwards to help. Mel Gibson being one of them, because I actually really like Mel. Um, I haven't met him in person, although I probably would not have a problem with him at all. Um, and he might have a big problem with me because of what I'm saying right now, but I will explain my position, and it might actually change a lot of your opinions about what I'm saying. Are you ready? You voted for regulations that strip people from their ability to defend themselves. I will not step foot in California to rebuild your cities just to be stabbed in the back, or have people attempt to stab me in the back or burn me to the ground without being able to defend myself with the implement that I choose, which in this case would be a firearm. Okay. Number one. You voted for that. Okay. And even if you didn't, enough of you sat back and said it's not my problem. I live in the countryside. It'll never touch me here, to where it's everywhere. Okay? That's the first thing. Number two, zoning and restrictions. I would have to spend the next 5 years minimum fighting with your town office and your state just to get zoning regulations out of the way to be in a position to help you rebuild your homes. That's number two. Okay? And number three, even after we got your house rebuilt, even after everything goes back to somewhat close to normal, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, and this is the big overlying reason, is number three. You're going to go right back to the way things were. You're going to vote the same ways. You're going to just go right back to the same hog slop, just like the pigs I used to raise. Okay? I used to give them the table scraps. I used to give them all the junk that we couldn't or wouldn't eat. And they came right to it with their little curly tails just going a million miles an hour and oinking and happiness and bliss. Yep. And you're going to go right back to voting the same way. Maybe not in the first 2-3 years, but eventually, like I would argue within the first 5, right? 10 for those that actually pay attention, and those that really pay attention and want to do something about their lives but realize that they can't. They're probably just going to leave California in general, right? Just like in principle, a lot of them are going to sit there and say, no matter what I do, nothing's going to change. Okay? And they'll just leave. And I'm not going to get into any bigger conspiracy about, oh, that's what they want, blah, blah, blah. That's for... That is for other people to investigate and figure out. That is not the purpose of what we're here for. I'm going to tell you why prophecy is not prophecy, it's just common sense. I'm going to tell you why, if you look at the numbers, you'll understand why none of this is going to have any effect. We see the same thing in gaming. We see the same thing everywhere else. And I will explain to you why all of this coalesces together into an actual, and Christians are going to be mad at me for saying this, but an actual biblical concept that we have kind of forgotten. Okay? Do you want to know why Islam is the way that it is? Do you want to know why nothing will ever change in that regard? Why Russia will never change? Why America will never change? Why liberals, Republicans, why they'll never change? Complacency. One word. Complacency. And this is what makes prophecy very easy to do when it comes to real world events. Why I can sit here and tout off all these nice little numbers that say in the next 5 to 10 years, California will go right back to being a fire pit and more people will die. Because people refuse to learn the lessons that are taught. Okay? Because it doesn't affect them. you got to remember that, yes, sure, LA, a little bit of LA got burned. The rest of the state is fine, just fine. You know, oh, we're suffering through, not having our proper water stuff. And you've had 20 plus years to deal with it since 1994, when the backroom deal that caused the diversion of your major lake um, went into play, which has now cost lives, and has cost lives in the past, and is effectively a predatory contract, and you have never done anything to refute it, rebuke it, or even remove it. Because at every turn, the people that say that they're going to do something about it get bought off by the people who did the contract. That's corruption in and of itself. Um, that's kind of another point to another video, right? Um, I actually did one. It was called the what was it? The Resnick, Newsom, Bass, Trump, Tango, or some crap like that. It was a stream that I did a couple days ago, but or yesterday or something like that, right? When you put out as much content, it's hard to keep up with everything when you do it on a daily basis, right? Like the exact timeline of when you put things out. But here is the problem. And actually, Gavin Newsom is not. He is a problem, but he's a problem that's actually a symptom of a bigger problem, right? This complacency problem that I've seen in humans across the globe, and in myself too. My friggin' guts an example of it, but yeah, complacency. In the case of Christianity, we grew complacent by not standing by our religious foundations. If we did, the world would not look the way that it does. In fact, the Christian population, believe it or not, would be smaller than it is now. So would probably a lot of the world population, actually, to be honest. Um, Islam, same thing. They focus so much in the extremism, and the extremists focus on making their extreme so extreme and causing issues for everyone else, that Islam just can't spread the way that it wants to. And Christianity is the same way, except they embrace this liberal ideology that says you can sin and still be with God. And it hinders the ability for Christianity to spread as well, right? Two polar, I would argue, polar opposite religions that you know that are in the same thing, but they have their problems that people have just kind of grown deaf and have totally like tone deafed it, right? And it's like owning a pet, right? You smell them every day, and you don't smell it because it's just another day, right? But someone else comes into your home, and guess what they smell? You know, they smell the pet dander, right? One of the good things about linoleum floors is that pet dander is easy to clean up. But but that other person smells your ick, right? Like I live in Maine, okay? Maine is a smaller version of California on the East Coast, okay? We have a Democrat governor who wrecks everything, just messes everything up at every turn, tries to get our taxes driven up to the point where no one can afford to live here, wants gun control, wants poor forestry management, is bought off. Her family is directly interwoven with attempting to get a stupid power project that has next to nothing to do with the state, except for using our land to get resources from Canada to Massachusetts. The list goes on, right? Like it's not just California. This stuff happens in blue states everywhere, right? And we try to fight back against it, and it doesn't always work out that way, right? I get it, I do. But there comes a certain point where, for your safety, your family's safety, and your well-being, that you have a responsibility to sit down and have a conversation with yourself, your family, and your loved ones, and say outright, is it time to leave? This is important. I will be right back. Get this mic for a bit. Okay, back to the thing about prophecy and common sense. That was a family arrangement for tonight. I had to take that call. If you watch how people vote, if you watch the situation surrounding the vote, if you look at the numbers, you can more or less predict how things are going to go, pretty much, right? Like, there are some things that kind of tilt it left, right, center, whatever, right? Up, down, doesn't matter. And it might skew against what you predicted. But there's a certain amount of... What's the word? I don't want to use overarching terms for, like, hostage sympathy and all that stuff, right? But here's the thing. There's a certain degree of... What was the name of that syndrome? It's not Helsinki syndrome. It's the one where if you're a hostage... Ah, crap. I can't believe I'm doing this on stream because I totally forgot a name. Stockholm Syndrome. Oh my word, I should have remembered that. There's a certain amount of Stockholm Syndrome that happens in situations like this, where, like, the thought process goes through your head of, this is my home, I live here, it doesn't matter that the government that overrides just about all of my decision making and is not in my best interest, the fact that they are, actively against my own self-interest just doesn't matter because it's my home, And inevitably over time you develop Stockholm Syndrome because, you figure that you have a psychological bond with your government and all this other stuff, right? To a certain extent. And it's not it's definitely not a definite, right? It's a thing that can happen. Heck, I feel it where I am now. I live in a place that is... Alright, truth time. You want to know the truth? I've lived in my grandmother's house off and on for the last almost 20 years. Give or take. Okay? I started when I was like 15, 16. I'm just about to my mid-30s, so about 20 years. Okay? I've been here. Off and on, not consistent. If you're wanting to go with the amount of total time I've actually been here, it's probably closer to about 15-ish years, give or take. Broken up into, multiple portions over the last 20 years. Okay. I have every intention of buying this place from my grandmother. Me and my fiance are actively saving up to purchase it. We're in the process of getting our credit score squared away and talking to a mortgage brokerage to get things set up to where we can buy it. It's not a matter of just living here for free. It's a matter of my grandmother's in her 80s and needs help. Okay? And, she won't admit to it. She's just like her mother, who I knew growing up, and she's just like every other woman in the family, that bullheaded, strong, stubborn streak that can do things on her own, and I don't get in the way of that. I just cook and take care of the yard chores and the bigger, heavier stuff that her inevitable age has made things difficult to do, right? And I know that sounds terrible to say, but people get old. I will too. My fiance will. Our dog will. My kids will. It is a human fact of life that aging and becoming weaker as you age is kind of a thing. It exists, you know. It's one of those irrefutable facts. But anyway, I am attached to this house, right? Like, it is effectively become where I've become comfortable. And therefore, I kind of understand the whole thing about what Los Angelinos are going through a little bit, right? Um, it's your home. It's where you've become comfortable. Why should you have to give that up because of bad policies that you maybe didn't think you were voting for but got anyway, or didn't vote for and knew that they were bad, right? Why should you have to leave because of the mismanagement of the way other people voted? I agree with that sentiment, actually, 100%. The problem is that this stuff is going to keep happening. Um, it will constantly keep happening. So, what do we do? Um, I don't know what to do, and that is really the problem, right? Is that I don't know what to do. Nor does anyone else, by the way. And anyone who claims to by saying, "Oh, just vote differently." I'm sorry, but you could vote as differently as you want to. Look, voting left or right in this kind of situation doesn't change anything. You could get someone who doesn't know how to handle proper fire response and preparedness on the right and on the left. Now, for granted, those people are in a smaller population on the right than they are in the left, that's for sure. But they still exist, right? Um, so, it's a no-win scenario. It is. And that's where people are going to think, right into that hole, right into that trap of the no-win scenario. The reality, you want to know how to fix your state? Okay. If I were Gavin Newsom, if I were the governor of California right now, I would be contracting out to the surrounding states. Red, blue, doesn't matter. They could be purple or green for all I care. I'd be contracting to Hawaii, Alaska. I'd even be begging Georgia for help. It doesn't matter, right? To send in their fire response crews and their best fire loggers, which are the people that go in and cut lines and clear out so the fire can't spread. And I would stop it dead in its tracks. Stop this fire 100%. No ifs, ands, or buts. National Guard comes in, arrest anyone trying to commit arson, and clear the area, right? Temporarily. It'd probably take about a month, maybe 2 months to do all of this, right? Hire in as many professional forestry logging crews that you can, and anyone who wants to protest or whatever can protest all that they want outside of the working areas. Not cutting down live trees. Removing everything dead from the forest floor. Animal, tree, brush, the whole 9 yards. And then I'd walk my happy butt right up to the Resnick property and every other person of interest with the Monterey Compact of 1994, and I'd light it on fire in their dooryard and tell them that it doesn't matter. California needs this water. It is a state emergency. You can F off. And I'd say the same thing to the environmental groups and the tribal groups. It does not matter. You are the governor. You have a job to do. This is entered into the territory of you not being able to do your job because you've made these faux commitments that realistically don't mean anything when it compares to human life. Okay? And then just deal with the consequences after the fact. They want to sue the state, not my problem. The state can choose to take up the lawsuit or just throw it out and say, don't care. Problem solved. And then when they try to take it up with the federal government, you can explain the situation to the feds. They can look at the contract of 1994 and just declare it as not legitimate because it's predatory. It's cost human life. It's cost X amount of property damage for the rest of the state. Problem solved. And then moving forward, so my point. What's my point? Gavin Newsom may or may not do this stuff. I highly doubt he will. And I'm just talking about California at the state level. I could go into all the frig-ups of the Biden administration surrounding this event, which I probably will. Because this video says saying the part no one wants to hear. But, actually I will, because we'll trail off into that later. Why the voting isn't going to matter, and why this learning experience that cost so much property damage, and all the actors, a lot of the good actors lost their homes, and, a lot of belongings, a lot of them lost their pets, and why it doesn't matter, and why you're still going to get the same result. I'll tell you why. It is the same reason that your high school prom doesn't matter. It's the same reason that unless you married your high school sweetheart, right? It's the same reason that your friends in the high school often get forgotten. In 5 years, maybe 10 for those who actually have the mental capacity to last that long, which are very few, by the way. It's just going to be another thing in another, I would say defunct newspaper, but all newspapers are basically defunct at this point. It's just going to be another archive video set in YouTube's video history. It's going to be an archive tweet in Twitter's history. And it's just going to be something referenced as a political thing after the first 2 years. Okay? It is the only way it's going to get referenced. And I hate to say that, but it is the truth because it's what always happens. 9/11, same thing. Pearl Harbor, same thing. It's going to be used as a rally cry by one side to go to war with the other without sitting there realizing that it's not side versus side. It's piss poor management that's at fault. Okay? And sure, we could play the left versus right game. But I don't want to play that game. Oh, no. See, there's a reason why. Back in 1994, the thing that no one wants to say out loud because they want to sit here and play the games of division, Republicans and Democrats, people from both parties, made that thing happen. This has never been a party versus party thing. It's been a, how can we extract, regardless of party, as much personal wealth out of a state at the detriment of everyone else in the state and not have to take responsibility for it? This is an issue that predates Gavin Newsom, and Gavin Newsom is a symptom of the problem that has effectively caused his own problem by not dealing with the bigger overlying problem of water access, lobbying groups keeping the forest floors from being properly maintained and keeping, diverting water into the San Francisco Bay, and a poor business contract that was written up and probably doesn't even really have legal standing if you really took it through the court system, diverting another like 60% of your water to agriculture. Okay. And then, those same people donating X amount of money to certain places to make sure that it stays that way. Okay. And then, by the way, it doesn't stop there. It gets worse, okay? That's just the billionaire governor level. Then you go down to the mayoral level. The little bit of water that you had left to manage, you completely just said, oh, well, we're just going to drain it out anyway, and mismanaged it entirely. And then you mismanage your water in your reservoirs beyond that. You sent your firefighting equipment to Ukraine, which is a fact that has been proven. And then you embrace these DEI hires and fired white folks and fired folks who didn't get the jab because they either weren't diverse enough or weren't following some tyrannical, stupid jab mandate that, by the way, if a firefighter doesn't want to get the COVID vaccine or any other vaccine, what does that have to do with them fighting a fire? Do you not understand how a firefighting respirator works? They're safer than an N95. Are you kidding? Are you friggin' kidding me? You're sitting here saying, oh, well, they have to mask up and get the jab. And part of their job is wearing a mask that is designed to do that. Better than the one that you were pushing. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, but no, you had to, fire a large portion of your, firefighter base for not getting that shot. Okay? And then you wouldn't hire anyone that was of a certain skin persuasion, which is racial prejudice, whether it was under the guise of some equity and inclusion thing or not. Still racist according to the courts, and discriminatory, highly discriminatory. I mean, on legal grounds, you should be shut down anyway. So, I mean, yeah. Holy crap. But oh no. Oh no. It's climate change's fault. It's the right's fault. It's Trump's fault. It's not the piss poor management of your state. And I'm not going to say at the hands of Democrats, because both. Well, it's both. It is both. And you know what? I'm going to say it. The Republicans' lack of willingness to try to fight in California to take back California, I will hold that against you 100%. Oh, well, California... I will tell you why I do. Because I heard nothing but this for all my life, right? All my life. 30 years. California is a lost cause. The Democrats have it. The Democrats have it locked in 100%. Okay, and you're doing what to fight back? You're doing what to get those electoral votes in your column? You're doing what to deal with the situation? Nothing? Sounds to me like you quit. You gave up. You didn't want to do anything about it in the first place. You saw it as a burden on getting votes in other states, and, you went with the other states. Politically might be advantageous, but dangerous for the people in California, don't you think? Just saying. Oh, and this does play into Biden, too. Oh, God, did he ever fuck up? Oh, man. Oh, I'm not even a Democrat, and it still hurt to watch. How do you get this bad at public speaking? Look, don't go to a blue state and say, you get 100% support. and then tell a red state that they get that the individuals get a $750 loan that they have to pay back. Are you stupid? You're the president of the United States. Red, blue states don't matter when it comes to emergency response. You're supposed to be treating them with an even hand. Period. And I'm not saying give California $750 a person. No, I'm saying you rebuild California, the parts of California that burned. You rebuild the parts of North Carolina that got frigged up, and Georgia and Florida, because that is your job in emergencies. But you're derelict in your ability to do that because you can't see past your political nose on your face. You literally can't see that. You can't. And I don't understand it. Actually, I do understand it. It's because you want to play to your political agenda, your political base, and screw everyone else. They don't matter. This is what made you unqualified to be president. This is what made Kamala Harris unqualified to be president. This is what made George Bush unqualified to be president. Oh, Barack Obama, and every single person that we had in the presidency. They cannot, as president, what fucks you over bigger than anything else. You want to know what costs you things bigly, as Trump would put it? Letting politics get in the way of emergency management. That's identity politics, gender politics, and overarching politics. This is why these agencies were supposed to be apolitical, not political. Because now, you just told the whole world that you're going to rebuild California, and Carolina's not your problem. Well, you know what people are going to jump to? Yeah, because it's a blue state. It's where all your big donors come from. You're, of course, going to rebuild that. You're not going to give a rip about what happens in the Carolinas because they don't donate anything to you. They don't matter to you. Yeah. And I think that's going to end this video because I have other stuff I have to deal with. But I am going to castigate you until the end of time for this. Not one history book is going to forget this year and the events that happened between last year and this event. Yep. I'm going to bring it up at every conversation. Anytime a Democrat tells a Republican, or vice versa, that they're going to treat their state a certain way and treat every other state a certain way when they get into presidency, I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to call them what I'm going to call you. Scumbag. You know what? Christians are not supposed to say this. But there's a special place in hell for you and everyone like you. And I sure hope that when you get to the judgment seat that God goes easy on you, but I have a very distinct impression that leaders like you are not going to be treated well.